As ambitious men who are working really hard on our goals, the journey can become quite lonely. Everybody is out dating and it makes you feel like some sort of way. It makes you feel like you are missing out. Because the only thing that you do is grind your ass off and at some point it will get to you. You have to be careful not to fall victim to this because it can take away all the momentum that you've been building up. It can take you down and get you into a deep, crippling depression that will make you feel as if you cannot get out of it. Making an impatient decision like this will have you pay the price in a way that you wouldn't want to. Now, why am I telling you this? Well, I have lived exactly just that. I myself am an ambitious guy, and I like to work hard, and I like to work towards my goals. But at some point, the loneliness got to me. Let me take you back to 2019, when I went to Portugal to reset my entire mind. Because in the past, I used to be a weed addict. And I had a lot of difficulties with overcoming that. So in order for me to gain momentum in my life, in order for me to set myself straight, to set my mind straight, I decided to travel all the way to Portugal to my family, as I'm of Portuguese descent, and just spend a week over there. Not gonna lie, it was quite brutal. Because the first days, the only thing that happened is that I woke up early in the morning with cold sweats. I was just completely sweating. It's already a hot country. This was back in like the summer of 2019. It was hot. Woke up in the morning, fully wet from the sweat, got up, went to the beach, and just completely neutralized myself. It has successfully allowed me to reset my entire mind and to overcome my weed addiction. So when I flew back and started to grind really hard on my goals, something that I noticed is that I feel like I need love. I feel alone. I feel lonely. I don't like this sensation of being by myself, which is normal. It's a natural tendency. It's a natural desire to desire people around of you. We humans are made to be in group. We humans are made to be in a community. At that point, I was already needy. At that point, I was very lonely. I always had a very hard time with managing my relationships and managing love. So I downloaded Tinder and I started swiping. I just swiped everybody to the right side. At that point, I had forgone my own self-respect, and I was willing to settle for anyone who was willing to match with me. I was an insecure guy who didn't think he was attractive, who didn't think he had good qualities. My entire life, I thought I was below baseline of what it meant to be a guy, of what it meant to be a human, because everything in my life allowed me to see it in that way. So my self-belief was down the drain. Then I matched a girl. This girl was quite sweet. Me being a needy guy at that point, I thought like, yeah, let's meet up. So we started to talk, eventually met up with her. The moment that I saw her, I was like, you're not really the woman that I want to date. The way that you look, the way that you talk, I wouldn't call this a mother of my children. But, bro, I'm quite horny. I'm not gonna lie. I need to get this frustration off of my chest. Or let's say off of something else. I'm not proud of the decision that I made to date her. But what else could I do? Face an uncomfortable moment and tell her that I don't like her? Which I couldn't tell her because it was too painful. I felt guilty. I felt guilty for having met up with her and to then tell her that, you know what, I don't really like you. When instead that's a normal thing to do, but there's an issue that I have. The issue that I have is that I have a hard time with getting into uncomfortable conversations. This is something that I've had ever since a little kid, because why is that? It's some sort of trauma that I have from feeling like I'm never good enough for my parents, feeling like I'm never good enough for my peers, feeling like I'm never good enough for other people. Always being the guy who needed to do better. That was an unhealed wound that I had back then, which then reflected into every decision that I was making. Everything could have been solved so easily, and instead, due to the feeling that I had, the guilt that I had, I didn't. So I started dating her. never telling her anything. But I felt so bad. I've made the impatient decision to date a woman that I didn't love, that I didn't want, that I didn't want to have around me, that I wasn't willing to show to anyone, because every time that I wanted to meet up with friends and she was there with us, I had to pretend that we were best friends. I wasn't even willing to claim her as my own. And I used to make up an excuse to her and tell her that, no, I just don't want a lot of people to get into our business. What business? If you are together with someone, then you claim that person to be yours. There's nobody getting into our business. That's not how this works. But I couldn't accept it. So for 2.5 years, I dated her. And I wasted so much of my time, but as well as her time. During that period of 2.5 years, I saw myself declining in ways that I never thought I would. I became absolutely depressed. I was unhappy. Every decision that I made in my life just felt like it wasn't amounting up to something. My emotions were all over the place. I didn't know what I wanted. And all because of this one decision that I had made. Because of this desire that I had, and I was willing to settle for less. Now, this is not to say that she's not a good woman. It's just to say that we were not compatible. So I woke up every morning feeling unhappy. I didn't know what to do with myself. I didn't know where to go. Whenever she texted me, I just never wanted to reply. Whenever she called me, I didn't want to pick up. It got to a point that I started to abuse weed again. Because the thoughts and the unhappiness that was eating me up from the inside out was so prominent that I had to find something to numb my thoughts. I had to find something to numb my brain. At that point, I was self-sabotaging. But you know what's so interesting about self-sabotage? Self-sabotage doesn't exist. Everything self-sabotage is you having an unmet need that needs to be addressed, and you aren't. And so because of the unmet need that breeds and lives inside of you, it's looking for a way to get out. So when you have made a decision that isn't aligned to that what you want, and if you are ignoring something that is deep inside of you that needs to get out, it will start to look for a way so that it can stop you from continuing it. A good example of how I was self-sabotaging is that whenever I talked with her, I would get into arguments. I would get angry at her. I would be unable to control my emotions, and when something would happen, I would blame her instead of me. I would blame somebody else instead of me. When it was me who was making the mistakes, when it was me who was doing things that he shouldn't be doing. My unhappiness was because of me. My depression was because of me. I couldn't accept it. I was running away from that truth. My weed addiction was because of it. Because I couldn't accept the truth. Those 2.5 years were one of my lowest moments. I have caused so much pain, not only upon myself, but also upon her, that whenever I think about it, I do feel bad that it had happened. And a lot of people, a lot of men live this life still. I've spoken to a lot of men who are married to somebody that they don't love. They're not happy. They don't even love their kids because they're the kids of a woman they don't love. They're depressed. They're working a shitty job in order to make sure that their family is good and well, but not because they want to, but because they have to. They have taken on a responsibility that they didn't really want. So because they took on that responsibility, they now have to pay the price of the decision that they have made. Imagine if they had just worked a little bit harder Imagine if they had just made sure that they didn't settle for somebody they didn't love yet because of the desire that they had, because everybody around them was getting into relationships, everybody around them was getting married. And of course, if a lot of people are doing something, you want to fit in. As I said in the beginning, we are creatures of community. We want to fit into a specific group. This is something that we cannot run away from. But the self-awareness is absolutely important to know where this is coming from, to know what we can do in order to overcome it, and to understand that this is all impatience. A lot of people don't really know, or let's say they know what their goal is, but they haven't prepared themselves for everything that would come their way when it would get hard. They haven't visualized their failures. They haven't visualized these moments when something would come in their lives, and then they make the decision to be impatient, to settle for something or for someone they don't want. And when it's time to get out of it, they can't. Because they're running away from the reality of the fact that they have to go down a path of loneliness, that they have to go down a path of basically feeling like you don't fit in, because that's the thought that goes through your mind. If I reflect this back to me, when I was a kid, I never fit in. Even today, I don't fit into most people's groups. I feel like an outcast. I feel like I'm alone in my journey for most of the time. Because a lot of people are not making the sacrifices that we are making. A lot of people are not working the way that we are working. When we work a 9-to-5 job, what do we feel? Alone, depressed, like we're not supposed to be here. It doesn't matter how much money you make with a full-time job. It's not enough. It's not enough because you don't feel fulfilled. You feel empty. Our ambition is driving us to live up to a greater version of ourselves. And every decision we make that is not aligned to, or let's say that is a lower version of that what we want, is just us willingly choosing a lower quality of that what we really desire. The journey that we are on is not always going to be the most beautiful one. We will make decisions that will have other people looking at us, and especially people will be looking at us in a way that, what's wrong with you? And you genuinely start questioning, what's wrong with me? Nothing is wrong with you. You're ambitious. You want to make it happen. You want to live up to the life that you want to live, and it's not up to the standards of most people. You are willing to take risks other people aren't willing to take. So that will attract a lot of attention. And sometimes that's attention that we don't want. It's something that we have to take on with ourselves, and in order to make sure that we minimize the attention that we attract up to us, it's important that we don't talk too much about what we want to most people. So if you somewhat feel lonely in your journey, click the first link in the description box. Let's get to know each other. I hope you've been able to enjoy this video. I hope you've been able to learn something out of this video. My name is Mark Santos. I'm passionate about helping men to become the greatest version of themselves. I want to wish you a very nice day. And remember that you are 100% responsible for the results in your life. Make the hard decision today, and I'll see you in the next one. All right? Bye-bye.